Hello, welcome back. Part 2 here. We've talked about complementary colors. We've talked about mixing color swatches. Now I'm going to practice layering my watercolors to get a complex surface on my fox, kind of like this guy here, so that I get this buildup of what looks like fur and can build. Remember, I always got to remember my watercolor rules here since I'm working with watercolor. I'm going to go light to dark. So I'm going to first add let's move this up a little bit. I'm going to add a light layer underneath, and I want it really, clean your brush, people, clean your brush. Oof, I'm already not doing what I should be. All right, clean my brush. So, should have been a little better prepared there, shouldn't I? All right, I'm going to do a nice, light, kind of pale orange, because he's orange, but look at that, so bright, too bright. Let's get a little blue in there. Let's dull it up, make it how it should be. I want it really pale, so I'm adding a lot of water to this. I don't want it too bright. There we go. Nice dull orange. That's going to better match his fur. I feel like there's some warmth in there. I'm going to add a little warmth too. Warmth. All right, pale and orangey, but not too bright, and warm. Sure, all those things. Let's test it. Let's do a little test on my thing here. What do I think of that color? All right. If I keep it light, I'm okay with that in the light spots. All right. So I have here, now I didn't draw it out. Should have drawn it out. We're going to go quick. I'm going to draw it out. I'm going to do, here's his ear. Here's a little bit of fur coming off here. Here's this. Here's the fur coming down this way. There's this little dark triangle of fur in there. There's a little dark. I'm not super concerned if it's exact shape and everything right now. I just want to play with the color. There's that. There's his little eyes coming in here. And there's a little snout. Okay, so now I'm going to start with a real light, and anytime I do fur, I want to think about the direction. This is light, so I'm not going to do that. Oh, I went down too far there. That should be. Don't worry. Remember, watercolor's erasable. Clean my brush. Get some of that color up there. Blot. Shazam. Look, it's white again. So here, and this is a little whiter over here. There we go. See? Happy accident. Now I can show you how I clean that up if I get too much on there. I should clean my brush even more than this. Come on. I don't want to scrub the paper too much because I don't want the paper to come up. All right, so here we go. Nice and light. Anytime, as I started to say, I'm thinking about fur, I want to model the length and direction of the fur. Right now I'm not as concerned about length because I know I'm going to cover all this. But I do want, and this is light, so maybe I don't need that in here as much. But I do want just to start that base coat. Because there's no white completely underneath here, right? There's a color there. There's some white spots. You're right. I see them. But giving myself this little base coat can establish, let's see how the fur comes up like this? I want to go this way and get that direction of the fur with my mark. And then this comes in here. All right, so now I have a base layer. I have my light. I always work light to dark, remember? That's the watercolor rule that always wins. Light to dark, back to front, general to specific, keep them transparent. Those are my rules. Gotta follow my rules. All right, here we go. Like so. So I get a little movement in there. Nice light coat. Now I got to build layers, right? Because that's not his fur. It doesn't look like that. There's a lot more going on. So next thing I'm going to do, continue to work light to dark. I'm going to get a little darker with my colors. And now I'm going to switch to this is a nice point, this brush. I like that guy. So I'm going to switch to him. Detail round. Not my tiniest yet. But getting there. Now let's look at these colors that I'd created before. There's some nice colors in there I want to mimic again. I need some orange. And remember, when it's really bright, he's not that bright. He's a more natural color. I need some blue, my complement. A dab of my blue to even it out, give it a more realistic color. My blue is like my right hand here. Maybe left hand because I'm right-handed. Ooh, that got dark fast. Too dark. That's okay. All right. I want some of that lighter fur first. Let's get some yellow in there. Not quite so dark. A little more water. Let's see how I'm doing. Test area. Oh, I like it. All right. So let's see. Where's this color? If I look at here on my swatches, that's sort of like this lighter yellowy color. So I'm going to go over here now. Let's see where this goes. And again, just like when my undercoat, everything I'm doing now, I'm thinking about the length and the direction of the fur. See how it's blending together? I don't really want it to. I'm going to take a little water off my brush so it stays more separate. Here's a little bit of this coming up here. And then it kind of goes this way. So my marks should correspond, as I was talking about it, I didn't finish what I was saying, to the length and direction of his fur. So that I give the illusion of that fur. And as I do the fur, I like to start at the base and then lift it up. Because see how that's easy to do it that way? So that it lightens and it looks like the edge of the fur. If I went the other way, the thick part would be at the top of the fur, and that's not how fur grows, right? So I have these, getting this sort of warm orangey yellow. It's not perfect. My match is not perfect right now, is it? But the key is that I'm getting it, I'm going to do it consistently. I'm going to use these same colors to blend these different parts. There's a little bit of this orangey in here, I see. A little bit thicker, a little more water than I want my mark. So let's do that. This is coming down here. I see some coming here. This may actually be lighter, so maybe I'll come back in just a minute with a little less water on the brush. Come on, not so thick. Lighten my touch. And you can see how it's starting to look a little furry. Now here it's lighter. So I'm just going to get it lighter by moving my mark further apart from each other. I can also use a smaller brush. Might move to that in just a moment. And here where they blended, I can always do another layer on top of there. Here it's a little red, huh? What if we get a little red in that color? Too much. Get a little bit, way too much water on the brush. There we go. A little reddy in there. I see a little red down here. It also helps to vary the color just to make it look more furry. There's a million colors in there. So if I just use one color, it's not going to look like believable fur. If I want it to look like fur, I got to get some more colors in there. Maybe a little dark. Oh, getting bold. A little bit of dark. Oh, not so much. A little bit of dark in there. That's a little darker here. It's starting to get dark right away. I don't want to do my dark quite yet. This edge is a little dark. I can do that. And then this edge here. There's even some dark in here. I'm going to do that last, remember? Light to dark, light to dark. Don't get distracted. I might do, see, now I took some water out of it, so it's a little paler. That can help. I'm going to my little brush. Little brush, where are you? This little tiny guy. This is prying number 3. You'd think that the numbers of brushes would be standard, but they're not. I want some of that warm yellow back. I'm going to keep going with my light. I think there's more light in here. So I'm building up these layers. Now notice, I wanted a light color, right? But there's just more on my brush, so I got darker. So I'm going to do some lighter layers over here. I dabbed it on my paper towel to get some of that off of there. I gotta move my hands so you can see my brush strokes, don't I? And then I go this way. And it's just like play. Little tiny marks, little tinies. Don't let them get too long. And you don't want to be, look at, they're starting to get consistent. If they look consistent, then they look like stripes. You're not striped, you're just furry. So I'm just gonna kinda Should be a little more confident in what I'm saying there, shouldn't I? This doesn't seem dark enough anymore. Get a little dark in there. Now, if I were doing this, here, I got to cut the dark in. And here, even though it's lighter, there are some darker lines. I got to get the lighter in. Let's get a little more in there. I'm getting anxious because I feel like you've been watching me for a while make these same brush strokes, and I want to show you more stuff. Ah, too much water, too much water. Keep it light and thin. So I'm getting some lighter brush strokes just to get that texture in there. And then, too dark. There we go. Because I want that furry texture. And then I do need, there's dark in there, right? But they're tiny and far apart. So once you get that texture in there, now to get that other part, I'm going to get some of this duller color, this blue. Make sure I don't have too much water on my brush. Dab it. And then here, let's see, I need just little bits of dark to make the fur look real. The dark is there, there's just not much of it. So really light, quick touches to give it some depth, and that'll give the fur the feeling of lights and darks in it. And I could keep going with a lot more of these layers. Now up here, I need some light values for these. Too dark. Here we go. Let's get some water in there. There we go. And I should change this, but trying to hurry here so you don't have to watch too much longer. So I get the feeling of these longer things in here. Longer furs. They're light, so I want to get those in now. And I'm not trying to match it exactly. I want the feeling of this fur. No one's going to be like, that's not quite that direction. Nobody's looking at the original. This is your own gestural, lovely, painterly interpretation of this, right? So, get off of there. So I would go over that again and get some of that thick off of there. Oh, that worked. There we go. Now I gotta get the dark, right? Yes, you do. So here I have some blue and orange mixed up already. Let's see how dark it is. I don't want too much on my brush. And even though it's pretty thick, I don't want it to look solid. It's not gonna look realistic if it's just like a solid blob. It's behind there. So I'm gonna kind of cut it in behind this dark. And it's not dark enough yet. I know this. I'm building layers. Here it's like short little hairs. These little short hairs. A little thing. And then this cuts in here a little bit. Now I have less pigment on my brush, so let's go back and get a little more so I can get a little more darkness kind of cutting in. And then here it's pretty solid. So even though I know this is solid, I'm going to keep my mark mixing it up so that it keeps that surface looking interesting. Because it's not like just a solid black, right? It's got some movement in there. So by just letting the paint kind of move and do what it likes to do, I can get a more interesting, more believable surface in there. There's some darks over here. There's some little darks in there. Keep my light touch. Less pressure on the brush, less of it touching the paper is going to give me a quicker, lighter mark. And then I'm going to go back over this with some more of that orange because it kind of covers it up, right? So I do have to, the difference with watercolor is you cut the darks into the lights because you work light to dark. So I do have to get this space in there. I do have to get that dark sort of cutting into it. But then as this dries, I can go back again with this lighter orange and go on top of it. And that's going to help it build that surface. And let's see, there's a little bit of dark on the end, but it's not an outline. I got to be careful not to give it an outline so that I get more of this feeling of like the edge of fur. There's some darks here. Maybe I'll take a little more off the brush so it's just really thin. And add some more of these darks here. This needs some more of that orangey red here, doesn't it? Maybe I do a few of these little guys in here, getting a little uniform and angle. So they're pretty far apart because this is a light area. We'll come back and do more around the eyes in just a little bit. That'll be number 3. There we go. Let's see, some more in here. And then, as it's drying, I can come back with my lighter orange. Clean that brush. Don't let the brown get in there, that gray. And maybe now I can come back and add. So these look like they're on top and covering that up. But make sure that's dry before you do that. So this is not done. I'd keep building these layers. But you can see this needs more red, doesn't it? And this needs some dark to complement that. But you can see how I'm starting to get that furry feeling of things coming up. So you need a little bit of dark far away in the light parts, and then you need multiple layers of the fur in here. So I'd keep going, but I think you get the idea. Build your fur. Think of length and direction of the actual fur as you're building up your layers so that you get that movement and that look. And make sure your edges are not outlined with this. If you're using just your brush, you want just little bits, little like touches with it to give the edge there. Looks like you need some more in here. So I'd keep going. Hope that helps. Thank you.